This audiobook is titled, How to Stop Overthinking and Take Back Control of Your Mind. In the next few minutes, you are going to learn why this happens, how to step out of the mental noise, and how to regain control of your attention, your emotions, and your life, not through force, and not through pretending to be positive, but through understanding how your mind actually works. Let's begin. Most people believe that overthinking means something is wrong with them. They think they are too sensitive, too anxious, too weak, or simply wired this way. But that is not true. Overthinking is not a personality flaw. It is a survival response. Your brain was designed to protect you. Thousands of years ago, thinking ahead meant survival. Remembering danger meant safety. And anticipating problems meant staying alive. So your brain learned one rule: if I think about everything, nothing will surprise me. That is the cost of unmanaged thinking. But here is the truth. You are not meant to control every thought. You are meant to control your relationship with them. In this audiobook, you will learn how to recognize the mental loops that trap you, understand what triggers them, step out of them without struggle, and build a calm, focused, inner environment. This is not about becoming empty-minded. It is about becoming clear-minded. It is about learning when to think and when to let go. And once you learn that skill, everything changes. Let's start with the first step, understanding the overthinking loop. Chapter 1. The Overthinking Loop. Overthinking does not begin with a big problem. It usually begins with a small thought, a simple question, a brief moment of doubt, a passing worry. Something like, did I say the wrong thing? What if this goes badly? What if I made a mistake? What if I fail? On its own, this thought is harmless. Everyone has thoughts like this. The problem begins when the mind refuses to let the thought go. Instead of passing through, the thought stays. It repeats. It grows. It connects to other worries. One question becomes 10. One doubt becomes a story. One memory becomes a mental replay. Before you realize it, you are no longer thinking about the present moment. You are trapped inside a loop. This is what the overthinking loop looks like. First, a trigger appears. It could be a message, a comment, a mistake, a deadline, a memory, or an uncertain situation. Then, your mind asks a question about it. Why did this happen? What does this mean? What should I do? That question creates discomfort. Your brain does not like uncertainty. It wants an answer immediately. So it starts searching. It replays past events, analyzes conversations, imagines future outcomes, and compares different possibilities. It tries to predict, control, and prevent pain. But because most life situations have no perfect answer, the search never ends. The mind keeps circling the same thoughts, hoping that repetition will bring clarity. Instead, it brings exhaustion. This is why overthinking feels so tiring. You are running mental laps without moving forward. Another reason the loop is so powerful is because it feels productive. When you are overthinking, it feels like you are working on the problem. It feels responsible. It feels intelligent. It feels like you are preparing yourself. But in reality, most overthinking is not problem solving. It is emotional reassurance seeking. It is your mind trying to calm fear by thinking more. The brain believes that if it thinks long enough, it will finally feel safe. But safety never arrives. Instead, the more you think, the more sensitive you become. Every small issue feels bigger. Every decision feels heavier. Every possibility feels dangerous. Your confidence begins to shrink because confidence requires trust, and overthinking replaces trust with doubt. Over time, the loop becomes automatic. You do not choose to overthink anymore. It happens on its own. A situation appears, and your mind immediately enters analysis mode. You replay, imagine, worry, and second-guess without even noticing it. It becomes your default setting. This is why telling yourself to stop thinking never works. The loop is not powered by logic. It is powered by emotion. Underneath every overthinking cycle, there is usually fear. Fear of making mistakes, fear of being judged, fear of losing control, fear of being hurt, fear of failing, fear of regret. Your mind is trying to protect you from these feelings by thinking ahead. But instead of protecting you, it keeps you stuck inside them. Here is the most important truth about the overthinking loop. You cannot think your way out of it. If thinking created the problem, more thinking will not solve it. The exit from the loop begins with awareness. The moment you notice, I am stuck in a mental replay, something changes. You are no longer completely inside the thought. You are observing it. You are stepping back slightly. You are creating distance between yourself and the noise. That distance is power. When you can see the loop, you are no longer the loop. You begin to realize, this is my mind trying to protect me. This is not reality. This is not a command. This is just a pattern. And once you see the pattern, you are ready for the next step, understanding what triggers it. That is what we will explore in the next chapter. Chapter 2: Emotional Triggers. Overthinking does not happen randomly. It is almost always triggered by emotion. Long before your mind starts analyzing, replaying, and worrying, something inside you has already been activated. A feeling appears first. It might be discomfort, insecurity, uncertainty, disappointment, embarrassment, fear, or pressure. The thought comes later. Most people believe their thoughts create their emotions, but in reality, it is often the other way around. An emotion rises quietly in the background, and the mind begins thinking in order to explain it. When you feel uncertain, your mind starts asking questions. When you feel insecure, your mind starts comparing. When you feel rejected, your mind starts replaying conversations. When you feel out of control, your mind starts imagining worst-case scenarios. Thinking becomes the brain's way of trying to regulate uncomfortable feelings. It tries to turn emotion into logic, confusion into certainty, and fear into prediction. But because emotions cannot be solved with analysis, the thinking never feels complete. One of the strongest triggers of overthinking is uncertainty. Human beings are wired to dislike not knowing what will happen next. When your future feels unclear, when a decision feels risky, or when an outcome is out of your control, your mind reacts by trying to simulate every possible scenario. It runs mental movies of success and failure, acceptance and rejection, safety and danger. It believes that if it prepares for everything, it will avoid pain. In reality, it only creates more anxiety. Another powerful trigger is the fear of judgment. Many people overthink because they are deeply concerned about how they are perceived. After speaking, posting, sending a message, or making a decision, the mind begins reviewing everything that happened. It asks whether something sounded wrong, looked strange, or created a bad impression. This happens because the brain links social acceptance with safety. Long ago, being rejected by the group meant danger. Today, that ancient wiring still exists, even when the stakes are much lower. Comparison is another hidden trigger. When you see other people's success, confidence, relationships, or lifestyle, your mind begins measuring yourself against them. If you feel behind, inadequate, or uncertain about your direction, overthinking starts. You replay your choices, you question your path, you imagine alternate lives, you wonder what you should have done differently. This does not come from laziness or weakness. It comes from a desire to feel secure about your place in the world. Loss of control is also a major source of mental noise. When something does not go according to plan, when someone acts unpredictably, when life changes suddenly, or when circumstances shift without warning, your mind reacts by trying to regain control through thinking. It analyzes what went wrong. It searches for explanations. It imagines how things could have been prevented. It believes that understanding everything will restore stability. But understanding does not always bring peace. Acceptance does. Past experiences also play a role. If you have been hurt, embarrassed, betrayed, or disappointed before, your mind learns to stay alert. It becomes cautious. It looks for signs of danger, even when none are present. Overthinking becomes a form of emotional armor. The brain says, if I stay alert, I will not be surprised again. Unfortunately, staying alert all the time becomes exhausting. What all these triggers have in common is this: they create emotional tension. That tension demands relief. Your mind offers thinking as the solution. It says, let's analyze this, let's replay it, let's figure it out. But thinking is only a temporary distraction from feeling. It does not resolve the emotion, it keeps it active. This is why people often overthink most when they are tired, lonely, stressed, hungry, overwhelmed, or emotionally drained. When your inner resources are low, your emotional system becomes more sensitive. Small things feel bigger. Minor uncertainty feels threatening. Ordinary challenges feel overwhelming. The mind responds by increasing activity, hoping that more thinking will compensate for lower emotional energy. Understanding your triggers changes everything. When you recognize that a wave of thoughts is being driven by emotion, you stop treating every thought as a problem that needs solving. You begin to see the pattern. You realize that you are not dealing with reality in that moment. You are dealing with a feeling, and feelings pass. They rise, they peak, they fade. When you stop fighting them with analysis, they move through you naturally. This awareness prepares you for the most important skill of all, learning how to step out of your thoughts. Chapter 3: The Observer Shift. Most people live inside their thoughts without realizing it. They assume that whatever appears in their mind is who they are. Every worry feels personal. Every doubt feels true. Every negative idea feels like a warning. Over time, this creates a strong identification with thinking. You do not just have thoughts. You become your thoughts. When the mind is busy, you feel busy. When the mind is anxious, you feel anxious. When the mind is uncertain, you feel uncertain. There is no space between you and the mental noise. This is why overthinking feels so powerful. It does not feel like something happening in you. It feels like you. When a thought says, you are going to fail, it feels like a fact. When a thought says, they do not like you, it feels like truth. When a thought says, you made a mistake, it feels final. You rarely stop to question whether the thought is accurate. You assume it deserves attention simply because it appeared. The observer shift is the moment this identification breaks. It happens when you begin to notice that you are aware of your thoughts. You are listening to them. You are watching them appear and disappear. That simple observation reveals something important. If you can notice a thought, then you are not the thought. You are the one noticing it. There is a part of you that is separate from the mental activity. There is a silent awareness behind the noise. Most people have experienced this without realizing it. It happens when you suddenly notice that you have been lost in thought for several minutes. It happens when you catch yourself daydreaming. It happens when you become aware that you are worrying. In that instant of noticing, you step out of the loop. You move from being inside the thought to observing it. That is the observer shift. This shift is not about stopping thoughts. It is about changing your position in relation to them. Instead of being carried by every idea, you stand back and watch them move. Instead of reacting automatically, you create space. Instead of believing everything, you begin discerning. When you practice this shift, you start seeing patterns. You notice that the same worries repeat. You see that certain situations trigger the same stories. You recognize familiar emotional themes. You realize that many of your thoughts are recycled material. They are habits of mind, not fresh insights. This realization is deeply liberating. If your thoughts are habits, they are not commands. If they are patterns, they are not prophecies. If they repeat, they are not warnings. They are conditioned responses. The observer perspective allows you to respond instead of react. When a worrying thought appears, you can acknowledge it without engaging it. When a negative story begins, you can notice it without feeding it. When fear arises, you can feel it without amplifying it. You do not need to argue with your mind. You do not need to suppress anything. You simply remain present as the awareness in which everything appears. At first, this feels unfamiliar. Your mind may try to pull you back into old patterns. It may insist that you analyze, solve, or prepare. It may claim that observing is irresponsible. But with practice, you begin to trust the calm clarity that comes from distance. You see that most thoughts do not require action. They only require recognition. Over time, this changes your entire inner life. You become less reactive. You become more grounded. You become more selective with your attention. You stop being dragged into every mental storm. You begin standing in a quiet center while thoughts move around you. This does not make you passive. It makes you precise. You act when action is needed. You think when thinking is useful. You rest when rest is appropriate. You no longer confuse mental noise with wisdom. The observer shift is the foundation of mental freedom. Without it, every technique becomes temporary. With it, calm becomes natural. Once you learn to step out of your thoughts, the next question becomes practical. How do you reset your mind quickly when it becomes overloaded? That is what we will explore in the next chapter. Chapter 4: Mental Reset Systems. Even with awareness and observation, your mind will sometimes become overloaded. There will be days when stress accumulates, emotions intensify, and thoughts multiply faster than you can notice them. This is normal. Mental clarity is not something you achieve once and keep forever. It is something you maintain. Just as your body needs regular rest and care, your mind needs consistent resetting. Calm people are not calm because they never feel pressure. They are calm because they know how to return to balance quickly. A mental reset begins with interrupting automatic patterns. Overthinking thrives on momentum. One thought leads to another, and another, and another, until the mind is running on autopilot. The first step in resetting is breaking that momentum. This can be done by deliberately shifting your attention to something immediate and physical, noticing your breathing, feeling your feet on the ground, paying attention to sounds around you, or focusing on a simple sensory experience brings your awareness back into the present moment. This grounds the nervous system and reduces mental acceleration. Another important reset system is attention hygiene. Just as your physical environment affects your mood, your mental environment affects your thinking. Constant exposure to news, social media, notifications, arguments, and negative content keeps your mind in a state of alertness. When your brain is always scanning for stimulation, it never fully relaxes. Reducing unnecessary input is one of the most powerful ways to calm overthinking. This means limiting mindless scrolling, choosing what information you consume, and protecting quiet time in your day. Clear decision boundaries also play a major role in mental stability. Many people overthink because they leave too many decisions open. They keep revisiting choices they have already made. They second-guess themselves repeatedly. They mentally renegotiate commitments. This creates constant background tension. When you learn to decide and then mentally close the case, your mind relaxes. You trust your judgment. You move forward instead of looping backward. Physical movement is another essential reset tool. The mind and body are not separate systems. When your body is tense, sedentary, or exhausted, your thoughts become heavier and more negative. Walking, stretching, exercising, or simply changing your physical position helps release stored stress. Movement sends a signal to the brain that you are safe and capable. It restores emotional balance more quickly than analysis ever could. Structured reflection is also important. Overthinking is chaotic thinking. It jumps from topic to topic without resolution. Calm reflection is focused thinking. It has boundaries. Setting aside a short period to write down concerns, list possible actions, or clarify priorities prevents worries from leaking into every moment of your day. When your mind knows that problems have a designated place and time, it stops interrupting you constantly. Sleep and recovery cannot be ignored. A tired mind exaggerates problems. Lack of rest weakens emotional regulation and increases rumination. Many people try to solve mental struggles without addressing physical exhaustion. When you are well rested, hydrated, and nourished, your mind naturally becomes more resilient. Calm is supported by basic self-care. Another powerful reset system is simplifying your life. Complexity feeds overthinking. Too many commitments, too many unfinished tasks, too many social obligations, and too many goals create mental clutter. When everything feels urgent, nothing feels manageable. Learning to reduce, prioritize, and simplify creates psychological space. Space allows clarity to emerge. Over time, these reset systems become habits. You stop waiting until you are overwhelmed. You notice early signs of overload and respond quickly. You adjust your environment, your schedule, and your attention before stress becomes dominant. You take responsibility for your mental climate. This is what emotionally intelligent people do differently. They do not rely on motivation or willpower. They rely on systems. They design their lives to support calm. Once these systems are in place, the final step is learning how to live in a way that protects your clarity long term. Chapter 5. Building a Quiet Mind Lifestyle. Stopping overthinking is not about winning a battle in your head. It is about creating a life that does not constantly provoke mental chaos. When your environment, habits, and expectations are aligned with your emotional capacity, your mind naturally becomes quieter. Peace is not something you force, it is something you design. A quiet mind begins with controlling what you allow into your awareness. Every day, you are exposed to thousands of messages, opinions, images, and demands. Each one leaves a small impression. When too many impressions accumulate, the mind becomes restless. Learning to be selective about what you consume is essential. This means choosing when to check news, limiting time on social platforms, avoiding unnecessary arguments, and protecting moments of silence. Silence is not empty, it is restorative. Your relationships also influence your mental state. Constant exposure to drama, criticism, manipulation, or unpredictability keeps your nervous system alert. Even subtle emotional tension can trigger overthinking. Building a quiet mind lifestyle involves choosing connections that are honest, respectful, and emotionally safe. It also means learning to set boundaries without guilt. Saying no when necessary is not selfish, it is protective. Daily routines provide another layer of stability. When your days have rhythm, your mind relaxes. Simple habits like waking and sleeping at consistent times, eating regularly, moving your body, and setting aside focused work periods reduce internal uncertainty. The brain prefers predictability. Structure frees mental energy that would otherwise be spent managing chaos. Emotional honesty is equally important. Many people overthink because they avoid acknowledging how they truly feel. They suppress frustration, disappointment, sadness, or fear, and then wonder why their minds become noisy. Unexpressed emotion seeks expression through thought. When you allow yourself to recognize and name your feelings without judgment, they lose their grip. Writing, speaking with someone you trust, or quietly reflecting helps release emotional pressure before it turns into rumination. Learning to trust yourself is another cornerstone of mental quiet. Overthinking thrives on self-doubt. When you constantly question your decisions, your mind never rests. Developing self-trust means accepting that you will sometimes make imperfect choices and that you are capable of adapting. Confidence is not about being right all the time. It is about knowing you can handle what happens. Letting go of unnecessary control is also essential. Many people believe that constant thinking keeps life stable. In reality, life has always been uncertain. Trying to manage every outcome creates exhaustion. A quiet mind accepts uncertainty without surrendering responsibility. You do your best, prepare reasonably, and release what is beyond your influence. This balance brings deep psychological relief. Gratitude and perspective further support calm. When your attention is constantly focused on what is missing, wrong, or incomplete, overthinking intensifies. Regularly noticing what is working, what is stable, and what is meaningful reorients your mind toward sufficiency. This does not mean ignoring problems. It means not letting them dominate your awareness. Over time, these practices reshape your identity. You no longer see yourself as someone who is an overthinker. You see yourself as someone who is thoughtful, aware, and emotionally balanced. Your relationship with your mind changes. Thoughts become tools rather than tyrants. Emotions become signals rather than threats. Challenges become manageable rather than overwhelming. This is what taking back control truly means. It does not mean silencing your mind forever. It means living in partnership with it. It means knowing when to listen, when to act, and when to let go. It means creating a life that supports clarity instead of conflict. When you live this way, peace is no longer something you chase. It becomes your default state. Overthinking is not something you cure once and never face again. It is something you learn to manage with awareness, patience, and self-respect. There will still be moments when your mind becomes busy, when worries appear, and when uncertainty arises. That is part of being human. The difference now is that you understand what is happening. You recognize the patterns. You notice the triggers. You remember that you are not your thoughts. You know how to reset, refocus, and return to clarity. You no longer need to fight your mind. You no longer need to fear it. You have learned how to work with it. You have learned that calm is not the absence of thinking, but the presence of control. You have learned that peace is not created by perfect circumstances, but by a healthy relationship with your inner world. And that relationship is something you can strengthen every day. As you move forward, remember that mental clarity is built through small, consistent choices. Choosing what you consume, choosing how you respond, choosing when to rest, choosing when to let go. These choices shape your emotional environment. They determine whether your mind becomes a place of support or a place of struggle. You are capable of living with focus, confidence, and emotional balance. You are capable of handling uncertainty without panic and challenges without collapse. You are capable of trusting yourself again. Nothing is missing from you. You are learning a skill that was never taught, and like any skill, it grows with practice. If this audiobook helped you, take a moment to reflect on what resonated most. Notice what shifted in your understanding. Notice what feels lighter already. Then carry that awareness into your daily life. Return to these principles whenever your mind feels heavy. They are tools you can use for the rest of your life. Thank you for listening and investing this time in yourself. If you found value in this audiobook, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with someone who might need it. Your support helps us continue creating practical, high-quality audiobooks designed to improve real lives. You are also welcome to leave a comment and share what you struggle with most when it comes to overthinking, focus, or emotional balance. We read your messages, and they help shape future projects. More audiobooks on discipline, confidence, focus, and mental strength are coming soon. Until then, take care of your mind. It is the foundation of everything you build.